welcome to Leaving CrazyTown with Finn and Sarah. Once again, we're back to talk about sex. We know it's your favorite topic, or maybe it isn't. Maybe it's not a happy arena for you, but hopefully we'll help you with that today.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Because if you're codependent, or even an addict, I mean, addicts have crazy histories with sex, shame around sex, there's all kinds of issues around that. If you're codependent, sometimes you can be doing things you don't want to do. You can have a hard time speaking up and asking for what you want. All kinds of things around that. You could focus on your partner and you could actually get really uncomfortable having your own needs met. So there's a bunch of things. All right. So we're going to start with what, Finn? We were going to start with things that get in the way of having a good sexual relationship.
Yeah, and I would say the number one thing we were talking about is not communicating. So you can't speak up. I happen to have always struggled with this, but since I've transitioned being transgender, it does require a little more conversation because when I'm dating someone and I'm getting to know them, I'm often thinking, all right, they're wondering if I've had surgery. Like, what parts do I have? How do you have sex with someone who's transgender? What's that? In somebody who's had no experience, obviously. So there are conversations to be had, and I have to navigate when do those conversations come up.
Of course.
And they usually do pretty naturally. So, but conversation, communication. So not speaking up about what you want or what you don't like, or, pretending that something's okay. I just gonna share a little personal, but I think Sarah knows this. The first time I kissed my girlfriend, she was like, "Oh, that was really nice." But the second time I kissed her, I jammed my tongue at her, and she was like, "No," you know what I mean? And I didn't have to take it. I knew it was a bad mistake or whatever, but
everybody's different.
Some people, I hear them all the time, like, "Oh, I really like this guy, but his kissing sucked. He's a bad kisser." Well,
say something.
Say something.
If you like the guy.
Yeah, so I would say number one is not speaking.
Not communicating. And the thing with not communicating is when you're in your head, you're not present. So if I'm with my sweetie and I'm like, I would even say, Jesus, something happening right now that is keeping you, or me, he might say, if something on your mind, because if you're not present, it's easily...
Well, there's no intimacy, so how much fun are you going to have?
Yeah, so, when you're not speaking up, and it means your mind is racing, but you're not in your body. So that's why it really doesn't help at all in the sexual arena. Okay, other things I had that get in the way are resentment. Like every couple's, seminar I've done, book I've read on couples therapy, they all say resentment is not only the number one offender to the alcoholic, but the number one offender to couples' happiness. So if you're angry or have some resentments, it is going to play out in the bedroom. You're either going to not want to have sex with your partner, or there's a lot of ways it's going to play out.
I mean, when you think about it, right? Resentment, so you could be hurt by something they said.
Yes.
You could feel slighted. You could feel like they didn't think of you. You could feel like there could be many reasons to have resentments. And now you're expected to ignore that and get into a relationship with in a situation with that person.
Yes.
You're in the most vulnerable state. You're either naked or you're being intimate, but yet this person, you feel like they've offended you and you haven't addressed it.
Right.
I don't know.
Get in the way.
I mean, and I'm sure many of you can relate to having sex on many occasions without someone, without intimacy, without knowing them well, we've done that. But now we're talking about you're in a relationship, a long-term relationship with someone. And if you can't even discuss a resentment, and then you're going to expect that you're going to feel this level of closeness that makes sex enjoyable.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Another one, expectations. All right. Expectations not only of your partner, like you're going into this thing and you have all these visions of how it's supposed to be, and expectations of yourself. I mean, I'm in a long distance relationship, and I'm telling you, it's been so important to talk about expectations because we maybe won't see each other for 5 days, and then we're planning this hotel, and oh, it's going to be this, and you're going to do this. And
then you have
maybe,
a stomachache.
Yeah, and then maybe we go out for a great dinner and we're lying there. So I mean, again, really trying to practice being, we're going to get to the good parts, but, just noticing, do you have expectations and are they realistic? And just being aware of them. So if something doesn't happen, you're not crushed.
Yeah, because what's going on up here in these expectations is spectacular.
Yes.
And then I might try to execute, and I'm like, well, I'm not an acrobatic. I'm not... You know what I mean? Like, wait, what was I thinking? Who's going to hold my own body up and do, whatever. It's not necessarily comes out. So you're talking about other things, but that expectation of how,
I know.
Whatever.
I know, it's so true.
And of course, so you go in with the expectation, that your wonderful spouse or lover is going to really enjoy it. And they're like,
geez, when did you learn that, honey? Geez, that's an interesting take. Yeah, really good thing to think about.
It won't hurt me if that never happens again. Thank you.
All right, another one, control and rigidity. Yeah, I mean, some people...
Because that could be fun, too.
Well, you know what? I wrote those words down, and then I thought, I just realized there's this new movie coming out, which we're going to see, which is a whole other topic, about that type of thing, like someone dominating someone else. So control and rigidity, I guess I mean by...
With self-control and rigidity.
Well, self-control, but also if someone is like, this is how I have sex, and this is how I have sex every time, and there's
I am
no...
a robot.
Yeah, and there's...
And I will not give you any feedback because this is it. You like that?
Yeah, rigidity around, I don't do this and I do that. Just kind of, instead of like some ease around exploration, that's what I mean.
Yes, and I found myself personally, especially recently, that when I have created this level of intimacy that we're talking about, ideas and playfulness opens up. It becomes playful, right? So maybe that's on the next kind of list we're gonna do.
Yes.
But having that loose idea, or not like, I absolutely don't like that, versus it's not something I've enjoyed in the past.
Yes.
But we'll see how it unfolds.
Yes.
Yes,
and before we get into kind of the ways that are going to help improve, acknowledging fear. Like I was going to say, one of the things that gets in the way is just anxiety and fear. Like for guys, it might be performance anxiety. For women, it could be performance anxiety. It's like pressure to have an orgasm.
Yeah, outcome sex is not probably the best approach.
Yes.
And Sarah and I have done videos on this before, that if you're with someone and they do not have an orgasm, don't make that about yourself, because we're not talking about your ego. We're talking about their pleasure. And maybe some people struggle with it. Some people don't want to. There's a lot of reasons. This isn't goal. Like, I'm going to achieve and win, and I'm the best lover because it gave someone an orgasm. Like, it's not about you, dude. Let it go.
God, that can be so, that is so. So my last one around things that get in the way is having fear and not talking about it.
Oh yeah, that was my number one. I forgot to mention it. Fear.
And thinking, something's wrong with me because I'm afraid, when this is the bottom line. Fear and anxiety, to me, are normal around starting to have sex with a new person or a new relationship. Or even in an old relationship, if you're trying to change patterns and you haven't done something and you have anxiety about bringing it up, like being able to acknowledge it, to talk about your fear. I mean, my sweetheart and I have had some great conversations about, oh my gosh, I'm afraid to do this. I'm afraid to hurt you if I say this. And yet we're both feeling the same way. Okay, so that was another thing. So now we're going to switch to, what are some things that help enhance the sexual experience, make it better?
So I would say off the top, all those things we discussed earlier inhibit intimacy.
Yes.
And all the things that we're going to talk about now probably increase intimacy.
Yes, very good way to say it.
Especially, when I was 20, it didn't matter, whatever.
No.
But now, like, I want an intimate relationship. And to have intimacy in a physical relationship requires the person to know me and me to know them.
Yes.
So all those things Sarah and I talked about, having fear, not talking, being rigid about like not being open, they all close us down. So for me, what makes a sexual relationship wonderful is intimacy.
Yes.
And how do we get that?
Yes, that was
talking. How do we get that?
To me, the definition of intimacy is telling the truth. I mean, it's telling the truth, and it's telling the truth about your real thoughts and feelings.
Right.
And
that creates space for playing.
Yes.
And having a playful attitude, like Sarah and I were saying, not being focused on the outcome.
Yes.
But like in each moment, and Sarah, I don't know if it's on your list, but Sarah was talking about touching and actually experiencing, like, what am I experiencing right now when someone's touching me or the person I'm with is touching me? Yes. And those moments of intimacy can be so arousing and intense that they're unbearable because you're focused on it. Now, when somebody is touching my chest, not just somebody, my sweetie, is touching my chest, and I'm not focused on the end game, I'm experiencing ecstasy in those moments as well.
Yes.
Because I'm present.
Yes. I've been reading a bunch of books lately, and this thing called, you can Google it, Sensate Focus is one of the #1 tools on helping a sexual relationship. And just what Finn said, which is hard because it's part of communication, and this is a big deal for people. Literally, each person is focused on themselves and what they're feeling and experiencing. One person is doing the touching and the other person is receiving, and then you switch. And you're communicating to each other what you really like, what you don't like, but you're not focused on pleasing the other person. You're just focused on what is bringing me pleasure.
And it could be communication of like, okay, yes, I love the way you're touching me. But also like you might want to be touched harder. You might want to be touched softer.
Exactly.
Like giving feedback.
Is the whole point.
Don't touch my chest here, but touch it here, or like that. Having that feedback creates additional intimacy. And I don't know about you, like I want feedback when I'm with someone.
Oh my gosh, it's so important. And this is the thing though. This is the thing that's going to get in the way of this. Taking stuff personally.
I was literally just thinking
my God.
And you might, right? You might. So if I'm touching my sweetie and she's like, I don't like that there, or she says, and she may have to say it harsh, who knows, like who knows who you're with. Sometimes they have to say things a little bluntly, or if it's like triggers them, or they're just saying it as nice as possible. You know what, I really like when you touch me here, but not so much here, and I feel shame, right? Because I feel corrected. That's my stuff.
Yes.
So it is okay to take it personal as long as you're able to share that. Oh, that bumped me a little bit. I'm feeling a little shame, and you can talk that out too.
Yes.
This is all going to create more intimacy.
And think about it. Like, do I want to know what brings my partner pleasure and what feels good and what doesn't? Yes.
But if he says, I don't like what you're doing, it may bump you a little.
It may bump me, but ultimately I really do want to know. Right. I mean, do I want to find out 5 years later that he doesn't like me or do a certain thing that I've been doing?
Even 6 times. Like, we had sex 6 times, and then they're like, on the 7th time, I never really liked that when you did that. You're like, what? Like, what? But, when you do
it's hard, though, or it can be.
So even if you get bumped, like just an idea, so you're touching your spouse or your lover and they say, oh, please don't touch me there, and you take it personal.
Yes.
Right? How you take it personal can also create or shut down intimacy.
Yes.
So if I start blaming them for not liking it, instead of just saying, oh, I'm sorry, and maybe experiencing a little, I got corrected. I don't like that. I want to be the lover of, Don Wanzi here. Instead of, being corrected, I want to be the superstar. That's my ego. Yes. And I say, oh, well, everyone else I've touched likes that. Or what's wrong? Why don't you like that? Or you start blaming, shaming. And that's not going to create more intimacy. Just deal with your feelings. Say, oh, I'm sorry. I feel a little, whatever. You might need to take a minute and then, regroup. But that's okay, too.
Yes. And kind of piggybacking on that, the thing about sex and what we like and what our partner likes and don't like, there's no judgment. So my feeling about it is, if I'm not hurting someone or hurting myself, anything is up for grabs. My partner might like a certain funky thing, and That's just who he is. And it's not my job to judge. It's my job to say to myself, is this okay
Something
with me
I'm
or
okay
not?
with, yeah.
Yeah, is this comfortable with me or not? But yeah, like to judge someone and shame them, especially about sexual behavior, definitely a no-no.
Yeah, we all carry enough of that without
this is a vulnerable arena. And we are also not saying that it's necessarily easy. I mean, I've had a lot of moments lately of really needing to pray and get the courage to communicate something. For whatever reason, there could be a bunch of past fears or whatever, and we can talk about that another time. But taking small baby step risks with communicating in this arena is key.
Absolutely.
And because the final result is joy. And really, joy, and Finn was mentioning laughter, having some humor and some lightness, not taking it so seriously. I mean, laughter and humor around, I was reading this book recently and they said, if you can have laughter and a sense of humor around sex, you've handled half the battle. Because again, it means you're not going to take everything personally. Last thoughts, Bud.
I don't really have any.
We want you to enjoy yourself, and we also want you to be able to get what you want and need. And part of that is identifying what you want.
Something huge that Sarah and I were talking about recently.
Okay.
In bed, naked, might not be the time to have these discussions.
Oh, yes.
It will be a lot less vulnerable. So something comes up for you, you don't have to continue doing it if you don't want to, but you might need to take a break and then have a discussion or talk about it beforehand. So many people engage in sex and they haven't even had any discussions about it.
Yes.
That's one thing you could say. You can even, like, for me, what brings me a lot of freedom and trust is when I can say in advance, I'm feeling a little nervous about this, whatever. And then I'm able to go by it because I can see how well, my partner handles my expression. But talking about really difficult things, not in the midst of it while you're naked and in bed and really vulnerable.
Yes.
Like maybe,
very,
for
very
me,
good.
I love to talk when I'm driving with my sweetie. Like if we're in the car, we can have great conversations, or on a walk.
Yes.
Because it's much more comfortable.
Yes. Very, very good tool. I did that just recently and took all the pressure off. All right. We want you to have a great sex life. And I just said that, and then I'm like, and some people aren't having sex. You could be having a sex life with yourself, which is a whole other topic, which is great too. All right.
And no shame.
No shame.
And drop us a comment.
Yes, tell us what you like,
what gets in your way. Not your sexual positions, thank you anyway. But what I mean
how
is,
you deal with it.
Yeah, what creates the most intimacy for you, and what blocks have you had with intimacy?
Absolutely. Fasten your seatbelt. We're leaving.
We're out of here.